Hi there, this is Wayne, and this is another episode of Type Tested. Today, I thought I'd do a fairly quick little video here about handling the shift adjustment on an Olivetti Lettera 32. As you can see, that's what I have here. It's a nice machine. It's in pretty good condition. I did a bit of cleaning on this last night, and it's working quite well, except for one particular issue. And that, if you'll notice, is that there is a little bit of a shift offset. Bring this down so I can show you. It's not that bad, but it's enough. So I need to make a correction. And I have not seen this explained in any video elsewhere, and I found the information a little bit difficult to find on the net. So I thought I would do my own video after figuring this out, just to provide a bit of education. Now, on any typewriter, if you do a shift, you can see the basket go down and up, or if it's a carriage shift, you can see the platen and the whole carriage go up and up and down. So in this case, we have a basket shift, and whenever you have that, you need to look and see if there are any, where the stops are. There's something that's going to limit the travel. In this case, there's a stop here and another one over here. And we'll see if I can show those more closely. So there's the one stop, and there's the other. Now, on this particular one, there's some light in here so you can see it. There is a little circlip on the end of the screw. So that made this a little confusing to me. I wasn't quite sure what to do to accomplish the adjustment, because usually what you have is a set screw on either side, and they have to both be kept in balance. Otherwise, what you have is the left shift key and the right shift key won't go to the same location. And you'll find that as you go across the page, or depending on which one you use, you won't have a balanced shift. So that's one problem with doing the shift adjustments on these typewriters, is that you have to make sure that when you get done, that you have the left shift, the right shift, and the shift lock all holding at the same position. If you don't, then you're going to get funny type. You're going to have some of these H's higher or lower than others. So you don't want that. You need to make sure that you take into account all of those adjustments. And depending on the typewriter, it may be more or less different. The shift lock on a lot of them is a physical engagement. In some cases, it's something that's adjusted by screws. In other cases, it's adjusted by plate. You may end up having to just simply bend the lever, or form, as people like to say. As I've said, forming is adjusting metal to fit a particular specification. Bending is what pretzel makers do. Anyway, so on this particular one, you have screws down here, and they are visible just below this bracket here. So there is a lock screw on each of these that has to be loosened. To do that, on this particular typewriter, you will need a 5mm wrench. Okay? These are sometimes very difficult to get at. This one is not bad, and just give it a little turn to loosen it up to make sure that you can actually move it. And then you can do the same on the other side. On this particular typewriter, this, I suppose you could call it a self-balancing system, because one of the reasons it was confusing for me is that this is not like other typewriters. Here, you have the screws on top, the circlip down below, the lock nut, and then the pointed end of the screw. So I got to thinking, well, what's all that about? And I noticed that this bracket here has more play in it than this bracket here. This is fairly solid around the screw. This is a little bit loose. So after looking and seeing that some typewriters have a uppercase adjustment on one side and lowercase adjustment on the other, that's when it hit me. That's what this is. So if I turn this particular screw here, and usually it's best to move the carriage out of the way to do this and come at it from behind, though you don't really have to. Well, surprise, nothing happens. But if I shift down and you look, you can see the entire basket is moving. It's difficult to see. Let me zoom in here so it can be more apparent. You can see it going up and down. So that is the uppercase adjustment. If I go over to the other side and do the same thing, if I can get it in the screw, now you can see with me not holding any keys down, the basket is moving. So the way this typewriter works, the lowercase adjustment is over here, the uppercase adjustment is over here. Now you have to decide which one is wrong, or if they're both wrong. So in this case, if I do a little bit of typing, tighten up my camera here so it doesn't fall down. Okay. All the text looks fine here. If they were both low, you might find that the bottom of the text being cut off. If they were too high, you might find the upper portion of the text being cut off. Now, that's called the on-feed adjustment, and sometimes there is a separate adjustment for the carriage itself, which there may be in this particular typewriter. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far into it because I don't need to do that on this particular one. But it can also be done by adjusting the stops on the upper and lowercase shift adjustment, and that may be all you have available. So in this case, they're both okay. The letters are all printing fine, so now I just have to decide which one I need to adjust. And in this case, I'm going to bring the uppercase down just a little bit. So to bring the uppercase down, the carriage needs to travel further down, which means that this screw, the stop here is a circlip. So the screw needs to go in just a bit. If it were on the lowercase side, well, that would need to come up in order to, if the H were low, to come up, I would have to allow the basket to rise higher. So that would be turning this screw, backing it off. So that's another part of making this adjustment, is thinking what you need to do. As a matter of fact, since this one is a bit easier to reach, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to back this off just a little bit. And on this particular typewriter, a little goes a long way. So bring it up just a little bit more. That's just about right. Bring it up just slightly. Because I like to get things as close as I can. That all looks good. Now, the advice also is to make this adjustment with an old ribbon, one that prints a bit light, because that gives you a better judge of what the print quality is. Now, I already know that this typewriter is good, so I changed the ribbon before I got to this point. And I had also experimented with this a little bit before in order to figure out the adjustment so that I could show you so I know that everything was printing the way it's supposed to. Now, once you've got that adjustment made, you need to lock it down. And that is a little bit interesting because you need to make sure that as you lock the adjustment down, you don't move it. So in this case, let's go ahead and turn this here. And they're always a pain in the butt because you can only turn them a little bit at a time. Okay, so that feels like it's locked down. Tighten it more, just to make sure it's good, but don't overdo it. Never overdo these things. You don't need to. These are just to keep the screw from moving. They don't need to be wrenched down an enormous amount. So just gentle enough that everything stays put. That ought to be enough. Now, when you get done, always double check the adjustment. And just as I thought, one of them moved. So let's undo the lower case. And put it back right. Okay, it needs to come down. Now this time, because I know it moved, I'm going to stand this up and I'm going to keep my screwdriver on it. Try not to let the typewriter fall. While I grab the wrench and tighten it down. If I can get my hand on the nut. Okay, first off, let's get rid of my support. I always like to work off the bench because the cleaning chemicals, depending on what you use, you get them on the feet of the typewriter and you can start dissolving them. So I use a towel to collect the stuff, and when I'm done, I may take the towel and take the towel off, dry the bench, and replace it with a new towel. But until then, I always keep things propped up to keep the chemicals away from anything that isn't metal. Okay. One more check, and let's see how we did. So we need to back off a little bit more. Okay. Let's do the other side so it'll be a little easier to do. That way I'm going with the tension of the nut instead of against it. Yes, I'm a bit of an amateur. A little bit more. I'll take that. So now, again, holding the typewriter up, I'm getting it out of the way of my camera. Holding the adjustment. And moving in with the wrench. Let's tighten the lock nut. Okay, and one more check. Oops. That all looks good to me. Okay, that's today's video. Thank you for watching Type Tested. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see future episodes.